Welcome to today's webinar. We're very pleased to be delivering this session today. This is the first time we've managed to get such a collection of winners from our Future of Aging Awards together in one place. Well, one place when it comes to the webinar, but they're positioned all around Australia. And this is a really good session to understand some of what they've been doing since since they won the award, what they've been doing with that, but also their views on the year ahead, and also their views in relation to questions that have been put forward by the audience, who I can see are now joining us. And just a reminder to our audience, and you're still coming in, I can see, you're welcome to ask questions throughout this session. It's a live session, so you just have to basically type your question into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll see those questions and we can put them to the panel. So to introduce our panel, let's start with Liz, Liz Cyarto. Liz is with Bolton Clarke, and Liz, your organisation won our 2019 Future of Aging Award, and from memory, that was the Technology and Wellbeing category. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, that's right. It was our Digital Independence project, which has become known as In Touch. Great.
Well, we'll be talking about that later. So later in the program, we'll have each of the panelists provide a little bit of an update on, more importantly, what's been happening as a result of the initiative that they were recognised for in the Future of Aging Awards, which in your case, Liz, we're going back a couple of years now, so it'll be interesting to hear just what's been going on. Tamra, welcome. You're with Goodwin down there in Canberra, and you were this year's winner of the same category that Liz won back in 2019. So for the Smart Badge technology, so welcome.
Thank you.
Alison, welcome to you, and you were our first winner, I suppose, for our Emerging Leader category, which we introduced this year, and we'll be talking about that later. So welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Christine, your win of this year's social inclusion category wasn't the only accolade you've won. I've seen that the Elder Pride and the initiatives you've had there have really been recognised in a lot of different areas. So congratulations on that, and we look forward to talking more about the outcomes, especially in relation to people, staff retention, attracting staff. That'll be really interesting. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's been an amazing journey so far.
Great. And Ash, you're an old hand at this. We've been doing these for about 18 months now, so welcome back to our latest.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Really exciting to be here. I've actually got a week of seminars and webinars and conferences and so on. I was at a AFR Super and Wealth conference yesterday all day in person, which was a novelty.
Right.
And speaking on Thursday at a superannuation conference and so on. But this one, very much the Future of Aging program and our partnership with you and so on is a real kind of crown in our jewel in our crown in terms of sort of our engagement model. We love the work that we do here. We love the engagement opportunities that we have with providers in this sector. It's a really sort of strong values alignment for us to be working with innovative firms and engaging and having conversations like this. We think we're so excited by the prospects for innovation in this industry, and really proud to be on a panel today with 4 very brilliant women who represent 4 very innovative organisations. And really congratulations to all of you for the recognition that you've received in this awards program, and thanks for the partnership, Sean.
Yeah, no problem, Dash. It's funny, you've just pointed something out. I just realised both myself and you are the thorns amongst the roses here.
We certainly are, yeah. I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
So this is just a very brief overview of the format for today. So we've had a few questions from the audience already, which we'll go to those first. And as I said earlier, everybody on the call today is able to ask questions live. And our panel has been very obliging. They've agreed to take the questions without notice. So you'll be getting a pretty straight answer when you ask them. This is probably one of the first questions we got. I mean, challenges around community home care, and what are the biggest challenges? I suppose we might start with you on that, Alison. Do you have a view on that? I mean, you've worked in this area and you certainly continue to do so. What do you think the biggest challenges are at the moment?
Well, speaking sort of from our perspective, which is we're an assessment organisation for both regional assessment services and veterans home care. So I guess from that RAS perspective, just the uncertainty of the future for RAS and ACAT and CHSP and HCP programs, like, you know, we've got some goals and things to work towards and a lot of work still to be done. But yeah, there's probably a little bit of uncertainty towards our future coming up. So yeah, a lot of work to be done on that. So that's going to be definitely one of our biggest challenges I see in the near future.
And I suppose from Goodwin's point of view, I mean, Christine, what do you think? I mean, you operate in both areas as well, don't you?
Well, actually, we don't do any home care anymore, but I think, you know, just supporting the uncertainty. And I think the Royal Commission did dent the confidence of a lot of aged care workers across the sector. So I think staffing is, you know, a real issue. And I guess looking to the future and what sort of packages are people going to have, how long are they going to be waiting for home care. So I guess all of those things are really, really quite difficult to kind of navigate it, you know, looking into your crystal ball for the future. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we had a story we put up just this morning. It's a report that Liz has done calling for more input from home care providers with respect to the impending changes that are coming through from government. So, I mean, does anybody want to comment just on just how much input that they think they should be having with respect to changes in government policy and alike for home care? Maybe Tamra, your view. You guys do operate in home care as well, don't you?
We do. We operate in both. Yeah, our biggest challenge is probably the pace of reforms, keeping up with it and maintaining compliance, but also bringing the staff on that journey, because it seems to them that we're constantly changing and saying we've got to do this, and it's always got a tight time frame. You know, things need to happen really quickly, and that's you know, that gets wearing and tiring for staff. So we just need to, I suppose, you know, a lot of these reforms need to happen, but sometimes the timing is so tight, and we need to remember we've had a tough 2 years pretty much, you know, in life generally, but also particularly in our world, that, you know, sometimes slowing things down a little bit, I don't think will have a huge impact. And we just need to be mindful that we can't keep asking our staff to constantly keep changing, you know, at such a pace. It's really hard. That's probably our greatest challenge.
And Liz, from Bolton Clarke's point of view, what would you agree with the other panelists?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And what I was speaking with one of our local area managers in our home support service. I'm based today at Ipswich in just outside Brisbane, and she was saying that there's certainly a greater IT savviness amongst our clients and potential clients. So they're fact checking. So we, as providers, we need to be on the money with what we're offering and suggesting, because the potential clients, they're looking and they'll call you on it if you're not 100% above board. So that's something that they've noticed more recently, and will continue as we have our baby boomers who are tech savvy moving in towards looking for home support services. So that's something that she made a point. And also just the amount of competition. We're all just many of us, and we're all interested in having clients, and so that creates the setups, and clients can pick and choose now, and so it creates a different environment than perhaps before.
Yeah. I mean, this next question, this one might be something that you can lead into, Ash, and it's an interesting one. It talks about Tim's about technology. You've got to get the people aspect right. I mean, Ash, your business sort of works with providers, but I'd imagine you probably touch on the people side as well. Is that true?
Yeah, sure. I think it's an interesting transition from what Liz was just commenting on around sort of the technology influences in the space, specifically in that home care space, the savviness of the consumer and their ability to choose and so on. Those things are big challenges to the kind of incumbent service model. But I think then also the sort of transition, the influence of technology in in the service delivery model, also the way that the providers are able to adjust and deploy technologies to kind of IoT technologies and sort of sensory technologies and those sorts of things are big challenges for providers who are not traditionally sort of technology organizations. To be able to deploy and be at the front edge of the service model is a really big impending challenge. And I think that points to a good segue to the sort of what are the things that providers need to be able to do from a people perspective to be able to address those sorts of challenges. And our view on this and a lot of the work we do with our clients across the various sectors, aged care being one of them, is sort of helping the organization develop the kind of cultural dimensions. There's sort of hard technical, procedural structures that organizations need to have to be able to do change and to be effective at change, but there's also a really sort of strong underlying set of cultural dimensions. It's like the bandwidth and the thought and the approach and the decision-making processes and so on, the safety to be able to change and innovate and so on. So yeah, there's kind of shifting to being organizations that embrace change and technology change and process change and service model change and so on. Those are really significant cultural challenges for organizations. Christine, I know the conversation we had with you, I thought was really invigorating, kind of just that sort of, kind of cultural dimension that allowed your organization to take on potentially confronting or challenging sort of changes and so on, that freedom and flexibility to change. But I think, kind of the answer, Sean, is really, it's culture, it's about culture and that sort of space to innovate.
Christine, do you have any examples of what you've maybe done? Because I mean, your win with the Future of Aging Awards this year was technology, in particular the smart badge technology. I got you mixed up with Tamra for a second.
That's all right.
Did you have any examples? I mean, of what you've done to really embed change and then probably that culture aspect. I mean, some examples you can share with the audience.
Look, I think what we've been doing at Elder Care over the last few years has really been around a lot of engagement. So engaging with staff and with our residents and with the families to really kind of embed their kind of views. And of course, when you get to technology, as I think Liz said, you've got a huge range of people. You've got the sort of high-end users, and then you've actually got quite a lot of our residents who, are really just quite technophobic. But what we've done, and for our LGBTI work, was really around the cultural change piece and the organisational change to really, so that, really involves getting people to be passionate, to see why we're doing it, to bring them on board, to do training, to kind of actually answer their questions, but really getting their views on things, I think, has been really critical in getting their buy-in. And I'd say we're in a really good space now for our staff to kind of take on a whole bunch of new things. The diversity piece and the inclusion piece was just the sort of beginning. And, we're looking at a whole range of things. And I think, as Ash just said, we're building a new centre next year. And we're trying to put state-of-the-art technology in there that's going to kind of keep us in check for maybe 4 or 5 years. So I think that cultural piece is really important for not just your staff, but for the people that you're working with.
And I suppose from your point of view, the way you've done this with a very open and inclusive environment, that I suppose that would be step one almost in really developing a positive culture. And I think I even recall from your entry that when you have done surveys and things like that, you've got a really good response.
Yeah, we started off, and I mean, it's not just in the LGBTI space that Elder Care's been seeking those views from people. So every 2 years, we do a cultural survey of our staff. But for the LGBTI work, we did a baseline survey, and then we did another follow-up in at the beginning of last year, just to kind of see where everyone's going, and you can kind of really measure then. And we got some really fabulous answers. I mean, that's the really thrilling thing, is that we could see that people thought that they'd learned something new and they were actually putting it into practice. So I think you've got to keep checking in with people. You can't just kind of go, well, here's the new thing. You've really got to see how people are going with it. Have they got some issues? And it's the same with our residents and our families, is you know, just keep talking. I think that sort of feedback loop is really, really important across the board in everything that we're doing.
And Tamra, as I sort of started earlier, Goodwin, you won, and in fact, you didn't just win the award this year for technology, but you've been very active with new technology innovation and the like. I mean, again, some examples you've used to bring staff on that journey.
Yeah, sure. So we won with a smart badge, which is a automated contact tracing wearable device. And we were very fortunate. The timing of our implementation worked very well with leading into Christmas last year. So when there was quite a lot of COVID starting to re-emerge in the community. So people were very interested and very keen to trial the device. So we started it in December last year, ran it all the way through, and now we've implemented the actual smart badge through one of our homes. Which has been very well received, particularly from families. Families feel very reassured knowing that anybody who enters has this smart badge on, which is just a wearable device that with a QR code, and it does your contact tracing for you. So it will say, if I've been on site, it will say, if I pull a report, who I've actually been in contact with for how long. And it's really been very helpful we've done lots of simulations at this one site around, what that would look like with fellowing of staff and, how that whole workforce would look. Ultimately, it is to reduce the volume of staff that would need to go into quarantine. We have had exposures with our positive staff members at other sites, and we look at over 50% of our staff having to furlough due to that potential contact, because we obviously don't know where the contact is. But when we did it at the site with the smart badge, it's reduced down to about 20% of staff, because we can directly see within a couple of minutes who we've been in contact with. And the really interesting thing is it's actually changed behaviour. So when we initially started, we actually engaged staff in it. We'd say, okay, let's pull you up on the system and let's see how many people you've been with, talking with. And it shocked us, because it was far more than we thought and far more than they thought. So, for example, one of the staff had 47 contacts with other staff over 72 hours, which would have deemed them as a close contact. And at the end of our trial, we reduced that down to an average of about 12. So it really showed us staff movements, and it showed the staff how close they were, because it's got a social distancing component. So it'll buzz at you if you're too close, which at the start, it's really quite off-putting, because you think this damn thing doesn't stop, but it's telling us and we actually noticed that we stand quite a way back now. But yeah, it just reduced our staff movements. So it changed behaviours, which is exactly what we wanted, but we didn't expect it to be probably quite as prominent as it was around the staff behaviour change. So we are looking at introducing it at our new site. And I suppose now COVID or any other infectious disease, they're not going away, and be part of our life moving forward. And hopefully we don't get any cases, but the chances are very high at these sites. So if we do, we'll be able to pull our data quickly and hopefully not have the same issue of workforce shortages.
I reckon, Sean, could I just jump in really quickly?
Sure.
Know the Goodwin team quite well. We've started to do some interesting work with the guys at Goodwin, and that specific example of a technology innovation, I think, is the result of, it's a symptom of the culture that exists at Goodwin. So Goodwin have just appointed a new head of innovation and transformation. Goodwin are investing in technology roadmaps and exploring what their ecosystem looks like and so on. That's what this industry really needs to do. It needs to resource and open its mind to transformational change, technology-led or non-technology-led. And the organizations, regardless of scale, Goodwin is not one of the larger providers, but they have a innovation culture which will advantage them very much moving forward. I think a really great example of Tamra's explanation of a symptom of the underlying cause, which is this culture and willingness to take on change and technology innovation and so on.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a story we'll continue to follow. Those sort of stories are always very interesting, especially when you start to see the outcomes that have been so positive, especially with staff. Liz, I might just go to you. Your Independence project, that started, was it 2018? Is it that far back, or?
Yep. Yeah, that's when.
So your point of view. Your point of view is going to be pre-COVID almost. You'll have learnings and feedback from pre-COVID, and certainly you'll have information now in the context of COVID. I mean, what could you say about the embedding this sort of change, technology-led change that is, with your staff over what's been a few years now?
So we started with a brief trial of the Digital Independence project, which is in essence a personal alarm system. So there's a passive monitoring system, an alarm per se with a pendant, and then there was a more what we call InTouch Prime, where it has the sensors installed in a person's home, and family can access activity through an app type of thing. So we piloted it, and after about 6 months of trial, about 90% of our clients and family members wanted to keep the services going. And so that kind of gave us the go ahead to expand more broadly. So now across all 25 of our retirement living villages, the InTouch system is in each unit. So we're talking about 2,500 residents living independently in our villages. And then we've also been rolling it out slowly to our home care clients, particularly those on packages are being encouraged to have the system installed, again, for their peace of mind, their family's peace of mind. So it's gone from just something, a proof of concept project, to something that Bolton Clarke has rolled out across its entire services and at-home support and retirement living at this point. So, and then we're now looking at, we have operations in New Zealand. So we're looking at rolling it out in our home support area in New Zealand.
Right, okay.
So if I could pick up one quick point there as well, Liz, I think this is something that comes up. I chair an innovation discussion group program in the superannuation and wealth management industry, and one of the things that works very well in that space is the experimentation concept. So you were talking about a proof of concept idea that then blossoms into a really strong sort of business as usual service model. We reckon that kind of vast majority of these good ideas come from sort of small scale, low risk ideation and proof of concept work. So there's a really great example of that, and that's a really key cultural dimension, the ability to sort of allow people to do little pilot things that are interesting, and then the willingness to continue to support them as they roll out and deliver broader benefit.
Yeah, and there were so many learnings around the installation of the sensors, for example, and customizing it to the clients and the residents in terms of entrances and exits they use. And so a lot of things were learned through that pilot phase, which led to some changes in how it was implemented.
It's an agility that you just can't do if you try and solve the whole problem in one go. You need to sort of approach it in a sort of experimentation, learn and cycle style model. Again, sort of kind of answering that point too on the screen there. It's the kind of all these dimensions that come together to enable good quality change that make fundamental service delivery model differences to organizations.
And in our case, it's important that we trialed it with people living in their own homes in different states. So we had New South Wales and Victoria and Queensland. We had, again, a few different retirement living villages in different states. So that, again, because there could be some differences that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on if you're just doing it in one place as well. So so co-design and co-creation and consultation with families and residents is essential in as far as what we do at Bolton Clarke around not just technical innovation, but all of our
You
programs and
mentioned
services.
innovation, isn't it? It's not, technology is only one of the tools that you can use to adjust and evolve service models. Yeah.
I think anybody that's on the call should be listening to this and thinking, if they've got technology that they need to embed within aged care, it sounds as if there's a fairly fertile environment. Obviously, the likes of Bolton Clarke and certainly Goodwin, both of your organisations have embraced innovation by way of trials and pilot programs, which I think is really interesting. Especially what you've said there, Liz. I mean, this wasn't just a toe in the water. This was a big commitment from Bolton Clarke over many years to embed this technology, the infrastructure, the people that went with it. So I think that's really interesting. The next question, this was almost written for you, Alison. Mentoring. I think your role with Aspire for Life started more so in a mentoring capacity. Is that right?
Yeah, I started as a RAS assessor for the first year or 18 months. Then we were really lucky to be invited to take part in the reablement trial, which came from the government rollout of sort of, getting a better understanding of wellness and reablement nationally across our sector. So I was one of the 12 reablement mentors across Australia and looked after a couple of different aged care planning regions to roll out the training to the assessment workforce that we had in using the active assessment model and sort of just increasing our understanding and uptake and success with reablement, wellness, strengths focusing, all of those sorts of things, which was absolutely fantastic. So being a mentor to the team, so that was our own assessment team across several regions, as well as our subcontractor teams as well. So got to do a lot of training, a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of buddy shifts, double assessments here, there and everywhere, and traveling all around the countryside. But mentoring, absolutely, sort of just that being able to share experiences and talk through, sort of what you've seen, what you've been through, and talking to client experiences and things like that as well. I think mentoring is absolutely really, really important, sort of, in most workplaces, but particularly in our sector, I think, sharing those knowledges, experiences, your successes and your failures. People learn so much from that, which is absolutely fantastic, and just brings that continued learning model into the way you work with the other people in your organization. Takes away a little bit from just focusing on stats and numbers and things like that, and brings it back to the people. But yeah, I definitely love the mentoring model.
Alison, when I caught up with yourself and the Aspire for Life team in sort of debriefing and congratulating you on the awards, one of the things that jumped out to me, and this relates obviously to mentoring, is the way that you guys have used technology and are starting to use technology to kind of help facilitate that mentoring process as well. So using kind of knowledge storage and techniques to share information in a way that kind of allows for flexibility and knowledge sharing effectively. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and even, just the basic things, doing a lot more, Teams meetings with our remote assessment workforce, etc., to the sorts of, aids and technology that we're recommending for our clients. Like last year, that became the biggest jump probably in the sort of referrals and ideas and things that we were talking to clients about because of isolation, because of COVID. So we sort of, really changed our focus for our clients as well in so many different ways. And yeah, we've got some great internal systems and everything, which I'm sure you'll talk to our general manager in another session a lot more about with the other award that we won through our internal system, which has been developed really, really well. And again, for that engagement, as Christine said before, it's all about the engagement. So making sure that we do have ways to engage with our clients, before the assessment, through the assessment, whether it's phone assessment, doing, you know, a Teams or a Skype call, whatever it is, and then, you know, post-assessment as well.
And Christine, I mean, with elder care there, I mean, your social inclusion program in particular, I mean, was mentorship a big part of that when you were rolling that out?
One of the things that we did, so one of the things we did early on in the process was to interview LGBT community, older living people. And one of the things they suggested that would be really useful for us was to have, we called it an advocate, but an LGBTIQ advocate, so that people would have someone within a setting to go and talk to through, you know, specifically the LGBTI issues. So we're in the process now of actually finally implementing that. But, you know, I think buddy systems and, you know, they're a really essential thing. And if you look at some of the really well-established mentoring programs that have been around. So I belong to the Public Health Association, and that's had a really long established mentoring for early career researchers and practitioners. And it is the accolades that gets from the development of skill sharing, supporting experiences, career planning. And I think you can apply those mentoring models to aged care beautifully. You know, you've got we want to recruit some younger practitioners into our setting, and the older workers can have so much to offer our younger, more inexperienced people. And I just think it's a really great way of supporting, of sharing experience, sharing knowledge, helping someone stick, you know, and really come into our industry and give them some longevity and then build them into other career paths. So, you know, come in as a PCA, do your EN training, build up to RN training. And we've had quite a few people who've gone that pathway as well. So I can't speak highly enough about mentoring as an approach for professional development.
Yeah. And it's interesting, that question that came in asking about mentoring. I mean, I think one of the things that was put alongside of it was just the average age now of people working in residential aged care in particular. I mean, we're talking about an average age well into their 50s and even older in some cases. So those sort of people can, as you said there, Christine, can provide a lot of valuable insight.
If I could just add, Sean, if I could just add one point, we've introduced a preceptor model of mentoring in our residential aged care services. So a more experienced clinician, an RN, helping to train and mentor the newer staff, and that's helping. It's going to help us with retention and again attracting those into those roles. So that's something that's we just did some training just recently to make sure that each of our homes has a preceptor and someone to kind of be that face and that person that helps people along. So we'll also watch this space, but it's an exciting new initiative that we're pleased to be rolling out.
And Sean, sorry, I'm butting into, in a few of our sites where we've got fairly strong residents committees, we also have, you know, it's not quite mentoring, but a real buddy system for, which is quite systematic. It's set up with the residents committee so that when new people come in, they actually have a buddy and get them used to sort of the whole strangeness of coming into a residential care setting. So it's a similar thing. And I think it's the same principles that are at play. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just for the sake of time, because I want to give everybody a little bit of a chance to talk about their winning entry and just some of the outcomes. Just very quickly, is there anybody want to comment on any technology that they've either used or seen? And I realise it might be your own technology that you can talk about later, your winning entry. But if there's something else that's caught your eye over the last year, feel free to share what that is.
Oh, it's Chris again. I think the strange thing for us, you know, with COVID was not so much the new technologies, but actually how important the older technologies around mobile phones and iPads were. because they were absolutely critical in keeping our residents connected to the outside world. And, you know, I'm so grateful that we had that kind of technology to be able to use. Pretty basic a lot of the time, but it was just so valuable to keep that connection.
There's
Anybody else? Yeah, Ash.
We kind of touched on this last webinar, Sean, but you know, for us, the technologies that we think are going to influence this industry the most in you know, kind of over the next kind of horizon of change, we think things like virtual reality are important, and kind of customer level enhancements. So I know human-centered design principles around you know, toolkits for care workers to be able to be more effective and efficient in recording information, recalling information about their customers and so on. I think that'll be important innovations and so on, but kind of underlying that, which is where we look most, we think data and analytics and the use of sort of the way that data and analytics aggregates information from biometrics devices and sensor devices and so on will be really become much more sort of mature in their applications in the industry. Yeah, so I guess that's my summary. The big topic though.
Yeah, actually, I might move into just where we're going to talk to each of the panelists about their respective win, and I might just go on in chronological order here. So Liz, I might get you to start. I know you've touched on some of the things you've done already, but it sounds as if you've got I suppose the backbone in there now with respect to technology. I mean, and what has now happened as a result of, if you like, installing the systems, the Independence project all those years ago? I mean, where are you at now with it?
Well, like I mentioned, we've rolled it out across all 25 of our retirement living villages. So all of our residents have access to that system, whether it's the basic personal alarm or the more advanced version with the sensors and the app and the pendants that you can take on the road with you. There's one resident who travels around in her caravan, and so she ended up with the bells and whistles version so that she could have her pendant as she was driving around and feel safe and secure that she could get access to help if she needed it, and also her family were reassured that she could access help if required on the road. So stories like that, you know, just how we can tailor some of the solutions to help meet the needs of our clients and residents, because they all are trying to live their best life and want to have the amount of freedom and independence, and having some technology underpinning that and being that safety net for them, whether it's just that they're at home in their unit or they are doing the big lap around Australia, knowing that they're, and again, for their family members, knowing they've got that safety net. And it's just kind of going from strength to strength with it. And again, all of our packaged care clients are encouraged, and they do take up the offer to have the system installed. And again, it's in terms of it's an extra cost for them, but they see the value in it. And they, you know, through the proof of concept trials that we did, the accuracy was quite good. There weren't a lot of false alarms and things that were off-putting to people. So it was they felt comfortable, confident, and it was reliable for them. And so that's kind of built that trust.
And how long before you got proof of concept? I mean, it was 6 months, a year? I mean, how long did it take before you really knew you had something here that was going to work across quite a large scale?
Well, I think it was, so we started the trialing in about 2018, and then we really started it in earnest about a year afterwards to start rolling it out. And again, it took time across. We've got villages from all the way up in the far north Queensland, all the way down to just across the New South Wales border in Tweeds Head area. So it took quite a while for the teams to get around and do the installations, because some villages are smaller, some are larger. So, but at this point in time, they're all on the system. And again, we're bringing our home care clients onto it as they join our service as well. So.
Okay. Christine, your project's been a bit more recent. I mean, I think that was rolled out, was it 2020 or earlier?
2019, we actually achieved the rainbow tick for residential care in SA. So, you know, it is fresh, but we have got a fair bit of water under the bridge, so to speak.
And some of the outcomes, I know you've touched on this a little bit earlier, but some of the outcomes you've seen in the last year or so, I mean, how has it changed your business?
Well, look, I think it has actually had a couple of surprising things. One is that it seems that we're recognised for diversity, not just LGBTIQ. You know, the work was really to start with around being inclusive for our LGBTI clients and staff and families, but it's kind of had a really bounce on effect for, you know, just constantly in interviews, staff will say from another culture, oh, I want to come and work for you because you're inclusive. Certainly it's had an increase in interest from our LGBTI staff coming to work for us because they feel that it is a safe and inclusive space. Families have commented that they feel the same way. So I think that's one of the unexpected outcomes. We didn't quite think that that would be how it goes. We really now, you know, we've done some of the big picture stuff, things that you wouldn't even think about, you know, having to de-gender the uniform lists and put building policies around all of this. So we're now trying to be a bit more nuanced around looking at pronouns, making sure that the staff are upskilled as far as understanding why things like that are really important. We've made an awesome film that we got some funding from the Office of Ageing Well in South Australia, and based it on, I guess, you know, you can't ask that, but it's called You Can Ask That. And that's got quite a lot of accolades from around Australia, and people are quite entertained by that. And I guess the critical thing for us is that we're really supported by an LGBTIQ advisory committee, and we really don't make a lot of decisions without actually taking everything to that committee for endorsement. So they're our real strength, I think. And we're really well connected into the LGBTIQ community. And so, you know, I think we really are moving into a really good space. But there's a lot of the sort of nuancing work now around, dare I say it, sexuality and sexual health policies and stuff like that, that we're about to embark on, which will probably make a few people's hair stand on end, I guess. You know, talking about sex in aged care is a little scary for some people.
Thank you. Alison, your award category wasn't so much technology, but leadership, which is, as we've discussed, probably just as important, if not more so important than the technology. And you're, as I said earlier, you're our inaugural Emerging Leader of the Year, which I think is very exciting in itself. But I think I'm right in saying your role has already started to change within your business. You know, you really are taking on a lot more responsibility, and I think you've even played a role with some committees, some government committees and the like, to advise the sector on different areas. Tell us a bit about just what's happened with you, you know.
And a lot of that, has been in place now for a little while and will continue. Things like the Department of Health has a communities of practice site specifically for service providers, but for industry in general as well, around the whole wellness and reablement model and why it's so important and why it's the future of aged care in Australia. So I was part of the rollout of that project and one of the moderators on the site. So answer a lot of questions from all sorts of people across communities in Australia around wellness and reablement. We have sort of been finalising a few smaller projects and things that we've been working on. So once they all get wrapped up, obviously we're going to be looking towards retendering once things do change in the next couple of years. So we've got a bit of work to do around that, but making sure that we do have our strengths in place, which is very much being very much wellness and reablement focused, and having a team that's fantastic. But connections, I've had some great connections over the last 12 months, but particularly in the last few weeks as well, some very interesting people sort of reaching out and wanting to have conversations, etc. So we'll be looking at those, so watch this space. You never know what other small projects and things will come about from those connections, which is really exciting.
Great, thank you. And Tamra, anything further you'd like to say in relation to not just Smart Badge, which is what you won the award for, but maybe some other projects or other things you might be looking toward in the future?
Yeah, I suppose for us, we're looking at how to make COVID the normal. You know, we've had the rough couple of years, so we just need to look at, and we're trying to see what technology we can use, and even just around staff behaviours, wellness and wellbeing for our staff, what we can do for them in this new normal. So we're working on a couple of just smaller projects internally around that, and we've got quite a lot of IT stuff, I think, as Ash has touched on, happening across the organisation.
Great. We're pretty much on time. Ash, any final thoughts or comments from yourself before we finish up?
No, I think, just like I said at the start, I'm just I love these sorts of conversations. I find it so satisfying, and such a impressive group of people who kind of have so much to offer, and an industry that really does need continual sort of transformation and change. I think that last kind of what's next thing, I think one of the big problems for this industry is sort of addressing the viability issue that exists. We've got Bolton Clarke here, who's kind of right at the top end of the sort of scale model, elder care, same thing, big business. You've got Goodwin in the middle, sort of mid-range cohort, but I think there's a very long tail in this industry, and the model for the industry, the transformational change that's needed is an important thing to really contemplate. So what's next? I think sort of concepts around blueprint architectures and simplification, or maybe outsourcing scenarios, sort of augmentation or collaboration in that smaller tail end of the industry is an important thing, because the people that live in those facilities that are operated by those operators are still people that need the same quality of care as the people that live in the facilities provided by those that have the capital to invest in innovation and so on. So I think as an agenda for this industry, it's really important that we start to think about how do we transfer some of these innovations that are developing at the kind of top end down into the sort of tail end, and provide the same quality and standard of care and so on that exists to the residents in those facilities. It's a real fundamental kind of fundamental market model that will need some kind of transformation and innovation to ensure kind of equality across the full spectrum of providers and customers of those providers.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because we've been doing these webinars for about 18 months, as I said earlier, and the amount of times we get a question that comes through. We are a single site in regional New South Wales.
Yeah.
We have these challenges. How do we fix them? I mean, that's a common question.
Yeah. We think the answer there is going to be in some form of aggregation, either M&A, which is a big thing, but more in aggregation of services. So like I spoke about before, I'm chair of an innovation discussion group in the superannuation and wealth industry. That's an industry that 15 years ago went through an outsourcing phase. And so you got this aggregation of administrative and technical functions into sort of standardized industry utilities. I think this industry really has to start thinking about how it can do that in an effective way to allow those sorts of remote, rural and sort of complex care providers to still be able to have the base kind of modern infrastructure and so on required to be able to deliver the kind of operate in the competitive marketplace and so on. Yeah. Outsourcing is one of the answers, we think, and so some kind of long-term or medium-term conversation around that will be a really interesting thing. I think people like Bolton Clarke participating in some way in that sort of model, and Goodwin and elder care and so on, that it's going to be an interesting industry combo. But aggregation and outsourcing is one thing we think needs to be on the agenda.
That could be a topic for a future webinar.
I think so, yeah.
Well, thanks again, everybody. We really appreciate you giving up your time to come on and answer the questions, and really just sharing a little bit about what you're doing in your business. And the intention is obviously that other people can learn and sort of pick up on some of these things. And congratulations once again for, I know Liz, you won your award a couple of years ago, but still you're very much a Future Aging Awards winner like everybody else. And, you know, the awards was very well campaigned this year. So anybody that got a winning a vote or a highly commended really did stand out amongst a fairly strong field, but a big field as well, a big field of entries.
Sean, if I could just add, one of the things that has developed out of our Digital Independence project is we're about to launch an internal innovation hub. I know it's not a very innovative name for it, but that's the working name at the moment, but which will allow, right now we're gathering insights from staff and clients and residents about what are the pain points around technology. And then we're going to launch some ideas campaigns and again, ask for potential solutions from everyone and everybody, and then evaluate those ideas and figure out, well, which ones should we move into more of a ideation experimental phase, and try to come up with something that we can again then put into a proof of concept type approach, and hopefully at the end of it will come with another solution of some sort that we can then scale up across clients or villages. So it's something that's come out of our work and the Future of Aging Awards.
Brilliant.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks, Liz. And yeah, thanks again to everybody. I really appreciate today's session. And I know it was a fairly open agenda, but I think we touched on a lot of different things. So
the best kind.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. We'll close today's session, and hopefully we'll see you again some other time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.